Okay, so now as a part of the trio, head, heart, and hands, we're first going to look at what's going on in the head to contribute to flow productivity. Specifically, let's take a look at the neuroscience of flow productivity. And we're going to begin, before we get into the neurochemistry, we're going to begin with the mental state that's going on. And we're going to start off with Mr. Mihaly, with a really complex last name, who is a Hungarian-American psychologist who first recognized and who first named the psychological concept of flow, which is described as a highly focused mental state conducive to productivity. All right up our alley as entrepreneurs achieving our life's greatest work. So, right now he is the distinguished professor of psychology and management at Claremont Graduate University. And as of this recording, he's still alive. And he came onto the scene with a very powerful, very well-known, and very successful TED Talk that talks about this flow state. So we're going to start off with one of his diagrams here. And this is how he describes in a mental framework, like the mental state framework of what's happening with this flow, which is essentially being in the zone. So let's take a look. On the left side, we have challenges. Here on the bottom, we have skills. So if a person is in an environment where the challenge level is extremely high and their skills in relation to that challenge is extremely low, it's going to produce anxiety. And most people, especially as entrepreneurs, we can handle this. We've experienced this. However, if this is in a prolonged state or even to a high enough degree or both, that creates overwhelm. It creates having too much, all right? And on the other side of things, we've got, say, a low level of challenge and high skills. That's where boredom kicks in, where there's not enough challenge, just easy, it gets boring, it's repetitive, monotonous, all right? So what he's talking about here is that this channel in between of a certain rhythm of enough challenge to grow the skills that creates the optimal flow channel, which over time actually produces the best optimal level of productivity. All right, let's take a look deeper into this concept with a similar diagram. Same concept, just shared in a little bit different way. So we still got the challenge on this side, which speaks to that it's a high arousal, meaning, high arousal if there's a ton of challenge, a ton of overwhelm, a ton of anxiety. Whereas the lower arousal is that's where we get boredom. Okay, so this optimal flow state is about increasing the challenge in the right amount that allows the skills to be engaged at the right amount and increase. And then as the skills increase, naturally the challenge decreases, it gets easier. And then it demands less skills from the person. And that's where it's the optimal time to increase the challenge. So it's kind of going in this circle and achieving this optimal rate of growth. And that's what we see with great mentors, great coaches. Let's take a look at martial arts again, because it's one of the easiest examples. But it really could be a sports as well, where let's take a look at jiu-jitsu. So if a person's coming in and they're just getting beaten up just with no hope of survival, which is kind of like what it's like in the first 6 months. But if there's not any rate of growth, if there's not any rate of like improvement, then a person gets burned out. Okay, and that could be with anything. It could even be with sports, of course, and obviously it's with business as well. So, but if there is this nice rate of return, and that's where the mentor, the coach, knows to what dose of challenge at what time is the optimal amount that allows a student's skills to grow and bloom without giving them too much and without boring them, without making it too easy for them. So that's what we see time and time again. And that's where, just like a championship coach is coaching an athlete, that's where you're learning this skill of coaching yourself, of understanding what is in your flow state, because if it's too much overwhelm and too much anxiety, burnout happens. And as we've talked about before, that's the land of linear productivity. And in the big picture of things, it actually decreases productivity tremendously because it takes so much time and energy to pull oneself out of burnout once it kicks in. So a further way of looking at this, adding some emotions, which technically is kind of getting into the land of the heart in the head, heart, and hands trio. However, all of these are all aligned together. I'm giving you frameworks to help differentiate each piece so that you can have a mental model to understand it easier and then deploy this easier in your daily life. So apathy, sad, depressed, and that's in this land if there's not enough challenge. And that's why we got to up the challenge, got to use those skills. And that flow state is being focused and happy. Enough challenge to be in the game, enough skills to be progressing, and creating that feeling of progressing, moving forward, and that happiness. Whereas, of course, with these, where the challenge is way out of a person's league, then these things happen. Okay. And another point here is like when a person feels like they're in a rut, it could be negative or it could be positive. It could be negative where they're in a rut where it's like, man, I'm just bashing my head against the wall. It's because they need more different skills. And especially with linear productivity just says, I just need to work harder. Flow productivity says, I need to work smarter. So what skills do I need to learn to get back into the flow zone? Conversely, this can also happen where a person's in a rut where they achieved the things that they want. They advanced to the level they want, and now it's just boredom. And where it gets easier and easier, and the challenge is just not there. So that's where you need a new challenge. You need something else to pull you, get excited about, to challenge you. All right? And that's what keeps people in this flow. And of course, as we have many dimensions to a person's character. So this is where new challenges can come in. Maybe it's not business, but of course it could be, martial arts. It could be physical fitness. It could be a creative hobby. It could be something else to engage the challenge aspect of a person. Okay. So this is Mihaly's model of the mental state. And next we'll get into the neurochemistry of what's going on in alignment with these mental states. See you in that video.